Good morning, Metalheads here now. Welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown, and today we're looking at the latest EP from hardcore crossover thrash legends, Cro-Mags, entitled From the Grave. The Cro-Mags are an American hardcore punk band, a pretty important, influential, and successful one, noted as a huge influence on a variety of subgenres within hardcore, including crossover thrash and metalcore. They may lack the broader appeal of Black Flag and the Misfits, but make no mistake, any true hardcore fan knows who Cro-Mags are, and knows their work, and knows their importance. Now, this is not the first time we've mentioned Cro-Mags here on the Metal Meltdown. In fact, really only about 6 months ago, we talked about another EP that the band put out entitled Don't Give In, which was their first official release with Harley Flanagan back at the helm of the band, and their first official release in general in nearly 19 years. All 19 of which were particularly tumultuous for the band, as Harley Flanagan was ousted from the band and Cro-Mags was taken over by what would eventually be a rotating lineup of musicians that came with legal problems and drama. Honestly, following the history of Cro-Mags in the last 2 decades is equivalent to following like the fucking Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's so many moving bits and pieces still that you have to pay attention to in order to understand the broader picture at hand. The situation is still a little messy now, as we have 2 existing versions of Cro-Mags. There's the official version with Harley Flanagan back at the helm, back in charge of this band, his band. And then there's the formerly official version, which is now known as Cro-Mags JM, which is the main version that you've seen in the last couple years. In fact, if you managed to see Hatebreed and Obituary on their spring tour earlier this year, it was that version of Cro-Mags, the Cro-Mags JM, that was on that tour, not Harley's Cro-Mags. But hey, it's one thing to do big tours, it's another to make music. And this version of Cro-Mags, Harley's version, the official, legally binding version of Cro-Mags, is the only one making new music. As mentioned before, they had an EP released earlier in the year, Don't Give In. I reviewed it here. I thought it was a pretty fun, solid dose of hardcore, metallic punk energy. Kind of whet my appetite for a full Cro-Mags record. With that in mind, I'm a little bit immediately disappointed that we still don't have a full studio album, but on the bright side, at least the fact that we're getting literally 2 EPs in the span of a couple months means that Cro-Mags is in fact working on new material, which hopefully does mean we will eventually get that new record. If you have heard Don't Give In and you enjoyed it, good news, From the Grave is going to give you everything you enjoyed about that record, plus a few little extra goodies. It's fierce and ferocious. It is the classic 80s metallic hardcore crossover sound that pioneered an entire subgenre of nonsense, translated into 2019 with a thick, burly sound mix that makes everything sound bigger, bolder. Harley in particular sounds super energetic on here. In classic EP fashion, From the Grave doesn't waste any fucking time, delivering brutish tunes right off the bat with title track From the Grave, featuring a tasty guitar solo from former Motorhead guitarist Phil Campbell, even giving this a little bit of a super aggressive Motorheadian flair that I'm really, really enjoying, even if it does make me miss the glory days of Motorhead. Rest in peace, Lemmy. PTSD keeps the train rolling. It is noticeably a little bit more simplistic right off the bat, channeling a more classic punk energy through modern metal sound aesthetics, but it's super enjoyable. I dig that all the way through. I particularly like the more thrashy batterings near the end of the track. And that, of course, brings us to closing track Between Wars, which objectively stands as the most ambitious cut of this EP, and perhaps one of Cro-Mags' more ambitious and surprising cuts of their career. I sincerely mean that. I mean, it is a 6-minute-long instrumental punk metal jam with acoustic guitars and some very moody passages, and it's very dense and atmospheric. There are some really haunting and jarring strings performed across the track. You can hear them specifically near the end as they become more prominent and the violins force themselves into the forefront of the sound. It's certainly different from the Cro-Mags I know. If they have done something like this, then please feel free to remind me. It has honestly been a while since I've listened to some of the older Cro-Mags shit. But off the top of my head, I can very honestly say that this is presenting a pretty different and interesting path for Cro-Mags. I would say that this track does run a little bit long, mind you. I don't think it's unfair to say that some fat could be trimmed from this single lone track, but that being said, complaining about length in general seems irrelevant when the entire EP is 10 fucking minutes long. Really, the closest thing I have to a legitimate issue with this EP is, again, the fact that, you know, I'm still salivating for that album and I keep getting EPs, these little teasers, you know? Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with teasers, you know, like you sit in a movie theater and, you know, you're just there and it's like, oh, cool, there's a new James Bond movie coming out. That might be cool. Oh, look, Wonder Woman 2, that could be cool. Oh, look, it's this special weird thing that Cineplex is doing. Whatever. That's fine. You don't objectively hate these things. But the more teasers they show before the movie, you know, the more you start to get a little peeved, the more you start to sit there and go, God, so many fucking trailers. We you know, the ticket said 7:30 and it's 7:30. What the fuck is happening? That's kind of how I feel right now. I'm getting a little peeved with these teasers, all right? Just show me the fucking movie. All right? Can we fucking go? I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5. Despite my complaints, despite my never-ending ravenous hunger for metallic hardcore, it's still super tight, super well produced, and super fun and energetic. I'm genuinely really happy and excited for Harley that he's back with Cro-Mags, and I'm hoping that this does eventually lead to a full record, or perhaps maybe a release in the vein of Pacific Myth, where we combine all of these EPs together. That way I have, you know, something a little bit more sustaining and substantial. But hey, we'll cross that bridge when we fucking get there. In the meantime, From the Grave is a super fun fusion of old school hardcore and new school mentality from a classic band. Definitely check it out. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.